Are you listening? Damn.
And welcome back once again to the Endurance Hour podcast. Back alongside Kona coach Wendy Mater. I'm Dave Erickson. Glad to have you with us this week. I'm a little chilly right now, Wendy. Just did my cold plunge. Actually, I got my sweatshirt on here. Cold plunge about a half hour ago, which is my fifth or sixth one since I got the tub a week and a half ago, and it's been so good. I've been recording these and putting these on the Endurance Hour YouTube channel. Still got goosebumps. But it really kickstarts my day. Have you had any experience with, I know you've probably done some ice baths post-workout, but what about doing something like that as a recovery protocol for you?
Yeah, I mean, when I learned more about Wim Hof method a few years ago, I used to jump in. I took some acclimation to it, but I would go in the lifetime outdoor pool in the wintertime. So it was in the mid 50s. I think it got as low as 45 according to the thermometer that I was bringing into the pool. And when it was that cold, I would just aqua jog. So I would go waist deep. And I'm just someone who just can't stand still. So I would just be aqua jogging while I was doing it. And I just thought it felt so good.
Yeah.
On my, after a weekend of longer intense training or any day. And it just felt really good. And when it was in that mid 50 range, like 55 to 60, I was getting in slowly up to my neck level.
Oh,
and just trying, once you get there finally, then it's a lot easier to stay there. I think the hardest part is just getting there.
Yep.
Sometimes you just got to take the plunge. So after I did this for a period of time, and then it got warm, and then I stopped, and then I did it again the following winter, I would just run outside and dive in. So I wouldn't even allow myself to slowly get in. I would just dive right in, the head, everything.
Yeah.
And I would try to swim across 25 meters. And then that allowed me to, usually I would just jump right out. But sometimes I was able to stay in longer once I got fully submerged.
Well, I've been doing these things.
Awesome.
I'm calling them cold plunge diaries. Just kind of, I think I'm at 100 days or real close to 100 days until Ironman Arizona, which I need to talk to you about afterwards. And some of these the diaries based on topics, on my route, my journey to this Ironman. And today was about time and temperature. And the recommended time is between 3 and 5 minutes daily if you can. And temperature sweet spot is 50 degrees, although they can say, you go to 43 to whatever, or 35, somewhere in the 40s would be even better. But whatever your body can tolerate, whatever's uncomfortable, but something you can handle from 3 to 5 minutes. And I was about 6.5, 7 minutes today. And I've been going from 5 minutes until 7 or 8 minutes. And it's okay. Apparently, guys, because of testosterone, my wife told me this, that's why, or at least her excuse of why she can't go very long. She says, men can do it longer because they had more testosterone in their body. So, well, if that's true, maybe, but I also have 60 pounds on her, so I've got more insulation. Maybe that's why I can handle
usually
more.
What it is.
Yeah.
Usually has to do with size and body weight.
Yeah.
And body mass.
Yeah. Either way, today was less screaming, not screaming, but less of that getting into the water than it has been since last week. But because I know what to expect, decent deep breathing before I get in, and plus I'm out on the deck. The sun rises right on our backyard, which is where the deck is and where the tub is.
And that's very helpful.
Oh my gosh, what a great start to my morning. But I'm still a little chilly right now. But that's part of what cold plunging or cold showers or cold immersion is about, is letting the body warm itself up after the fact. The shivering is, helping you stay warm, and you're pumping the metabolism and the blood flow, and the stress goes lower. I'm a little anxious right now because of the podcast, plus I'm cold, so I'm talking a little faster. Let me slow down, and let's get into our questions for this week's podcast. So thank you so much for submitting these questions, and for those of you in the community who are posting them. This from Amy. Hi, Wendy. I finished my first triathlon, Boulder 70.3. I feel underprepared for climbs and elevation changes on the bike course, coming from a flat land area of Maryland. My question to you: what phase of training should hills start to be a regular staple to prepare for an upcoming race, and how often? What do you think?
I think anytime in your training, whether it's the beginning, middle, or end, you should be doing hills because there are so many benefits to hill training, both running and cycling, from technique, endurance, strength, for sure. And then as you build some volume and get into the later phases of your training plan, then you can add like intervals, tempo work, threshold work, speed work on the hills, especially because you've already been doing it throughout the phases of the training plan. So when I moved from Michigan to Colorado, I think the first year, the hills were really struggled. I struggled big time with the hills and the foothills and the mountains. And so I had to change the cog cassette on my bike. I had to get a smaller chainring in front, and I had to get some smaller ones in back, just so I wasn't like always standing and barely turning the pedals over. And that helped me a lot. And then for me, I just committed because I could. I lived, it was just a 5-mile spin, 3 to 5 mile spin until I got to the foothills. And so I committed to doing all my training in the hills. And as I got more fit and stronger, I was able to actually do some hill climbing at a recovery effort, recovery heart rate, recovery power pace, whatever you're trying to use to determine intensity. And so it's just something that takes time to adapt to. So definitely if you live in an area with hills, don't avoid them because they're hard. They will get easier, and then you'll just get stronger that you can make them as hard or as easy as you want to. Generally speaking though, kind of backtracking, all the plans that we've created on Training Peaks, and pretty much depending on the athlete I'm personally coaching, if their course is going to have a certain amount of elevation gain and loss, when we get, for sure, if we have one already, when we get to the middle phases, the race specificity phase of training, that's when it's ideal to ride and run on the terrain that your race is going to have. And a course like Boulder 70.3, all those hills come in the beginning. I think it's a 2-loop course. So you're going to get them in the beginning of the first loop, and then you're going to get them in the beginning of the second loop. And then there's a lot of downhill. So I think for that type of course, I would also train, for me, because I'm competitive and I'm going to compete. I'm going for a certain time, not just to finish. I would have to train my body to feel comfortable going fast on the downhill section, because there is quite a bit of downhill. For every uphill, there's generally a downhill. So definitely, if possible, all phases of training, but for sure in the race specificity phase, which is usually 8 to 12 weeks out from race day.
So I just typed in here looking for chain rings for climbing, and this kind of breaks it down a little bit by mountain biking as well. But they say here road racing bikes typically have 2 chain rings, 52 teeth in the big ring and then 32 in the small ring. This is sometimes referred to as a standard double. And the easiest way to get lower gears with this setup is to convert your entire crankset to a compact double, which has a 50-tooth big ring and a 34-tooth small ring. And they say for road bikes with 3 chain rings are typically in the range of 52, 42, and 30. That sounds more like mountain biking, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because they say there's a hybrid option here as well. And they say if you're switching to a mountain bike cranks, those are usually 44, 32, 22 for the front. So for triathletes or road bike, we're looking at 53s. Is that what we're looking at? Or what's your combination?
53. I think I have a 53. I might have a 54.
Okay.
So and then the cassette and back just depends on the wheel that I'm using, but usually I'll use an 1125.
Okay.
When I lived in Colorado and I did this event called the Triple Bypass, the first year I did it was my legs were really struggled because I didn't have enough gearing as much as I wanted to. So I think the third time I did it, I borrowed my friend's wheel because she had a 34 in the back, and that made it so much easier because I was spinning more on the mountain passes like Vail Pass and Loveland Pass. Okay.
Well, hopefully it helps answer part of Amy's question. She did have a here. She said that my pace slowed toward the end of the bike and the run was so hot that I walked more than I planned. We've all been there. Could have hydrated more and was happy that she finished. But now what? Is any indication of how the bike went for her, or what happened where she had a rougher run than usual, just wasn't prepared for the hills?
I think congratulations, your first triathlon is a 70.3.
Yep.
That's great. Usually I like to have athletes do a sprint or an Olympic before they do a 70.3 just to get more experience. So for Amy, just getting more racing experience, 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathons, sprints, Olympic, half Ironman, triathlons is going to go a long way. And it sounds like she's learned a lot. She learned that she needs to do more hill work. If, when she goes back home to Maryland, hopefully she'll find some terrain or train hills like on a thing like Zwift or Trainer Road or some sort of indoor training app. Maybe some strength training is going to, well, not maybe, but for sure strength training, if she hasn't been incorporating that, is going to be helpful as she, moves on to her next season. And you just learn about pacing, even though you may have followed a plan and you tried to learn a little bit about pacing during the plan. It's really when you get experience racing that you really learn that kind of thing. If you went out too hard, it's your first one, you don't really know yet what that really means. You probably may want to ease back a little bit in the beginning, especially because the hills are in the beginning. So you'll just get experience with pacing. And I'm sure, doing your first one, having a half marathon after 56 miles, that's a lot. And so not knowing exactly what you did, but, one thing you could do is specifically, intentionally incorporate walk breaks into your run training, where right from the get-go, you're running a certain amount of time and then you're walking, like a run 4 minutes, walk 1 minute. And that will prevent you from possibly walking, the last 2 or 3 miles if that's something that happened. And then, it's always hot in Boulder, but I would always expect it to be hot anywhere I race, because if you can manage hills, wind, and heat, you're going to be stronger than most people on race day. So always, jot down how much you drank and what you ate and drank the day before and the morning of. So you have a record of what you did, so you can look at that and see, I only had 1 water bottle on the bike. That's what I did on my first 70.3, like 30 years ago. I only had 1 water bottle on the bike and I cramped. And so, making a note of everything, and so you can improve on it and something to work on for your next event.
Amy, thank you so much.
As far as now what, maybe you're excited, maybe there's still time to enter a couple more races before the season ends. But if not, you might be ready to kind of approach an official off season where you're doing other things, other activities, just maintaining some fitness until you figure out what your next event to train for is going to be.
Good question, Amy. I'm going to put you on a spot here, Coach Wendy. We just got the July-August 2022 edition of Triathlete Magazine. I got that. It's 40 years of triathlon featured inside. USA Triathlon Magazine, USA Tri. And in it, they've got 3 different sample training workouts based on Sprint to Olympic, Olympic to 70.3, and 70.3 to Ironman races, and some training guidelines. We offer a free sprint triathlon program for anybody on endurancehour.com. It's a free download, but we also have every other program you can think of, from beginner to intermediate at all levels on Training Peaks. If you type in Wendy Mader or Coach Wendy Mader, you'll find that on Training Peaks. All our plans are there. And what makes ours different is that we have video coaching incorporated into the plan as part of it before every major training block and sometimes every week of training. So with the sprint triathlon plan that we have for free on endurancehour.com, Wendy, how many hours a week does a person need to train or need to have available to train to do a sprint?
Generally, 3 to 4 hours.
That's it.
Even starting if you're following like an 8-week to 12-week progression, starting, at 2 hours a week, where you're doing 20 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes a day, or 20 to 30 minutes 3 to 4 days a week, depending on your fitness level, starting the program, depending on your background, if you have a background in swimming, cycling, or running. But our sprint plan is in that 3 to 4 hour per week range. Before you move on, I don't want to forget this. When I used to get all these magazines, I have a stack of them. I have them from like the last 20 years. And I was going through them this weekend. I used to cut out workouts from a magazine like USA Triathlon. Runner's World was pretty popular back then. And I would see a workout and be like, ooh, that looks like fun. I'm going to cut it out and put it in a scrapbook. And then I would collect all these workouts in my scrapbook and I would do them. And that was my training plan back when I started 30 years ago.
Well, wasn't that kind of the foundation or the idea behind your, was it 101 swim workouts made easy that we have as well?
Yes,
that
exactly.
You keep track of all these swim workouts you've done over the years. And I have a swim baggie down in the basement in my Ziploc bag. I have a bin that has swim equipment, bike equipment, and so on. And I have a baggie there that has note cards of swim workouts that I would just collect, or like, you put them in the baggie and you put them on the swim deck and you can look at, okay, I'm doing this set next. Okay, cool. But I just kept them, and then it's like a big stack. So that was like all these note cards, this scrapbook of swim workouts that kind of inspired this plan that you created.
Yeah, it was fun.
So this inside the magazine here, and I won't get to the Olympic to half and half to full plan, but they say Sprint to Olympic requires 7 to 10 hours per week. And they say to be successful at Olympic distance racing, you're looking at 7 to 10 hours. It looks like 2 swims, 3 runs, 3 rides, and some of these being brick sessions. As a guideline, be comfortable swimming between 2,000 and 2,500 yards within a session. Riding well over the Olympic distance of cycling, they say, at least 40 miles, even though it's 40K, and managing a long run of 8 miles, which could include a walk-run strategy. And they also give a couple sample workouts of the swim, bike, and run. Olympic to 70.3, 10 to 12 hours. Olympic 70.3 to an Ironman is 12 to 14 hours per week. And I don't know if these are just like for beginners or basic. But they also, break it down like, hey, you need to be able to do this, you need to be able to do that, and they give samples. That sounds to be right on target of what you would coach to.
Yeah, again, all our plans, we are specific in the description of where we think an athlete should be in terms of training volume with swimming, biking, and running before they start the plan. A lot of athletes are above that, but they want to start lower anyways. Some athletes aren't quite there yet, so they give themselves time to get there before they start a plan. In my mind, obviously, if you can't swim yet, you need to learn how to swim before you start a training plan. And that's just my opinion. Yeah. There's a lot of athletes out there who sign up for a race like a 70.3 or 140.6 a year in advance, and then they come to me and they can't swim that well at all. And at least we have a year to get them there. But I always encourage athletes, make sure you know how to swim.
Yeah.
And sometimes signing up for a race motivates you to learn how to swim, and that's great.
It's a good motivation. This from George. I see from your Strava account that you have run on the self-motorized treadmill. Do you like it? I'm probably talking about you, right, Wendy?
Yeah.
Running on Woodway, never heard of that term, has been my goal to try. I'm so used to running on a traditional treadmill, and I know it's not healthy to spend more than 60 minutes on it. I don't know about that part, about healthy, which is relative. Woodways. What can you talk about Woodways?
So the Woodway is a treadmill. It's a curved treadmill, and it's self-motorized. So when you get on it and you start running, you're running at your natural pace. You're determining how hard you're going to go. And then when you stop running or you slow down, the treadmill slows down. So you're not running at a dictated pace that you have to set on the more traditional treadmills. Since I started running on the Woodway, I can't go back to a regular or otherwise traditional treadmill because it just feels so different. And again, the whole natural running motion is what I'm encouraged by more than anything. And back in the day, more or less when I lived in Colorado, when we would have harsher winters, I would spend days and weeks indoors on a treadmill. And I'm not so sure that's always the best way to go if you're prone to injuries. And again, depending on your running gait, I'm not sure if that's the best way to go. But I've run hours on the treadmill. So I've never heard that running more than 60 minutes on a treadmill isn't healthy or is going to cause an injury. And I also know that, just depending on your current gait and all your training volume, more or less, that you're already doing, running on a treadmill at an unnatural speed. So if you force yourself to run at a speed that's not your current training speed zone, you could get hurt, because it's happened to me. And again, the Woodway, yes, I love it. It's the only one I run on when I run on the treadmill.
And does it have a regular readout screen that shows you how fast you're going?
It does, and I'm glad you brought that up. I actually created some videos of me running on the Woodway as well as a traditional treadmill, and we downloaded them on the Endurance Hour YouTube. I share them a lot with other athletes to look at running form. So on a Woodway, I find that when I'm running at a 4.0, which is generally a 15-minute mile pace on a traditional treadmill, it's way faster. Like, my effort is a lot more running at a 5.0 and 6.0 than my effort would be running on the traditional treadmill that shows me that I'm running at a 5.0 12-minute mile up to a 6.0 a 10-minute mile. So I don't run by distance. I just run by time and effort when I'm on the Woodway. So when I'm going to do, like, maybe I've done interval sessions on it before, I'll run, like 2 minutes at my own rate of perceived effort hard, and then I do my recovery. And the distance, I'm not concerned with the distance at all. I'm just concerned with the time.
And with the Woodway, do you have a incline perception, or can you adjust that?
That's another good question. Yeah, there's a lever on the right that you can make it hard or easy. I think there's 4 or 5 different levels of effort. And so when you crank it all the way up, you can barely walk. It's like, you're climbing a very steep mountain. And then again, as you get more fit, then you're able to run at that level. And it's kind of encouraging that you're like, okay, I can actually spin the treadmill a little bit at this hard level. But they show pictures of kind of the goal of each level. This is the hiking up the mountain. This is running at the track or something. And I do attribute my cadence, since I've started working at it, has always been on a little bit high. But when I run on the Woodway, my cadence is really high, and I feel like that's helped me increase my run cadence in a good, beneficial way.
Is your cadence higher because you feel like you're going to lose your balance? Is it you're kind of leaning forward a little bit because it's a rolling?
Yeah, at first that was why. When I first stepped on a Woodway, I got right off because I felt like this is weird, because I didn't know the different levels. I didn't know I could slow myself down by making it a harder level. But now when I'm running at just a comfortable pace, I'll keep it on level 2 or 3. But when I'm doing my speed work, because I want my higher cadence when I'm doing my speed work, I'll keep it all the way on level 0 or 1.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, they're great. I think it's a great way to run because it's your natural form.
And I've said this to other people because I was coached on this. When you're on a treadmill, you need to have at least maybe 1.5 to 2% incline to get the feel of being outside. Otherwise, you're a hamster. Otherwise, you're not really running. Like with your Woodway, you are forcing the motion. The gravity is part of it. Whereas a treadmill, if you're flat, 0%, you're just keeping up with the belt. It's easier just to do that versus having to have an incline where you're pushing against something to give the impression of gravity or hills.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I love my Peloton. I know it's a spendy option, but you could have immediate incline changes and speed in changes that are so fast. And I don't know, I just love it. But yeah, there's benefits to so many different things. You can always find a benefit to something, and always find an argument to something else. Okay, I want to move on to this from James. Feet getting numb when cycling, and also have developed a little constant pins and needles in my heel. Don't really affect me, but there is the sentence here. I need to start over here. James, your sentences and grammar are killing me. From James, my feet are feeling numb or getting numb when I'm cycling, and I've developed a little constant pins and needles in my heels that don't really affect me, but is there anything I can do for it? Any advice or opinions on the compression boots? This must be a second question. Being a bit older and a big guy, so the legs suffer. Oh my gosh, James. Can you talk about the pins and needles when cycling?
Yeah, this has happened with an athlete I coached last year. It didn't really affect him until Ironman race day, unfortunately, so he didn't have this knowledge beforehand while he was training, because his weather really impacted his training, so he didn't get in that many long rides like we anticipated. So when it came to that Ironman distance race, he had numb feet, tingling, and that really impacted the ride as well as the run. And he had an issue. I can't remember the name of what he was diagnosed with, but my first recommendation is go get diagnosed. Usually when you have like a pin or needle poking feeling, it could be neurological. It could be I just texted this to an athlete I coach. She might have Morton's neuroma. She's feeling some toe thing going on right now. And I'm like, it could be Morton's neuroma. Maybe she needs new shoes. Maybe she needs an insert in her cycling and or running shoes. So yeah, definitely, go to a professional physical therapist or someone you trust that's going to be able to look at you, analyze you, and tell you exactly what's going on before it gets worse. And if you're getting those feelings, then you're more likely to compensate and possibly get another injury somewhere else.
This one from Frank. Frank wants to qualify for World 70.3 in Finland next year, a great aspirational goal. He completed an Ironman last year, focused on 70.3 this year, had some setbacks due to illness, work, life, and he missed qualifying for Finland by one slot. So at least, it kind of says that he's a high-level athlete here. What do you recommend is the best plan of action for him now until his next qualifying race? And what are your recommendations on qualifying races?
So I would recommend, so there's a lot in this question. There's a lot of ways I can go with this. But first, if you're trying to qualify, the best way to guarantee a qualification in a 70.3 or 140.6 is to win your age group. The first person in their age group always gets a slot. Sometimes there's 2 or 3. Sometimes for larger men's age groups, there's 4, 5, or 6 slots. And I'm thinking more for the 140.6. When it comes to the 70.3, it's a little bit more generous because people turn down their slots. You could get 10th place in your age group, and the first 9 people don't want to go. And so what's called roll down. It rolls down to you. So when you go to the awards ceremony at a 70.3, you first go to the awards and see what people take the slots who finished top in their age group, and then you go to the roll down. And I'm finding, especially the last few years, with COVID happening and just a lot of other changes in life, that 70.3 World Championship slot has gone really deep into an age group. Like in my mind, that age group really, that person didn't really qualify, but kudos for them for going to the roll down and taking the slot. And so you want to get fast enough so you have more potential to win your age group. So when you're looking at races to possibly, go as your key qualifying race, go to a race that suits your strengths and weaknesses. If you're a great climber, choose a hilly bike course. If you're not so great at climbing, then choose a flat bike course or something. Think about things like that. If you're a weak swimmer and you choose a downstream venue, most people are going to be faster, not just you. So that's not always the way to go if you're thinking about, I want an easy swim, because then everyone's going to be faster because the current's going to push them downstream. So really focus on the bike and the run more than anything. And, it's August. We're going into, some people may have started their off season, out of season type of focus right now. So make sure you don't blow off the off season and take too much time completely off. I think taking some time off is needed and it's appropriate, especially if you've ended the last race of your season. That's the best time to take time off. But make sure you follow a plan of what you want to focus on in the off season. For example, if you struggled with running this season, maybe you want to do an off season running plan. If you focus with cycling, maybe you want to focus on cycling in the off season, same with running. And Dave and I have actually created 4 separate off-season plans on Training Peaks. One's a multi-sport, one's bike specific, one's run specific, and one is swim specific. And you may want to, something else I would do is, again, focus on speed by doing some 5K and 10K runs and get away from this half Ironman distance of 56 miles of biking, half marathon, and work on the shorter distances. So if there's still time left in your season, jump into some sprints and Olympics and get the racing experience as much as you can.
And we got word a few weeks ago that the Ironman World Championship, and I can't remember if it's this year or next, probably next year, right, is that they're going to have two separate days, a men's race and a women's race, and that means they can have more participants in each category. Mm-hmm. So there's more opportunities to qualify. They kind of had to do this. If you think about it, the more and more races they're adding to the schedule throughout the world, they've got to make room for more people. So this was kind of a natural evolution of the sport. So you have more room. And you were talking about go to a race that suits your strengths. And I'm thinking also be willing to travel to a race that might not have a lot of participants. Right. Be willing to go to Asia. Be willing to go to maybe, I don't know about Europe so much, but South America or Central America.
Yeah, I mean, if it's really a goal, that's definitely something to look at. I didn't even think about that, but definitely. I know I had a girlfriend who would go, I think there was a race in China that she'd always go to. I mean, it's very much an expense, and so you have to have that funding, but she would go to China and qualify. I think it was for a Kona slot. It may have been for a 70.3 slot. I don't remember. But I'm like, kudos to her. That's great.
Yeah.
Whatever it takes, just keep focusing on your goal and don't give up.
And that probably is why there's so many roll downs for the 70.3 World Championships, because it moves so often, as opposed to everyone knows where the Ironman World Championship is. It's been that way except for this year in Utah, that, I can't afford to go to Finland, or I'm in a different country, I can't travel there as easily, or because it is in my country, I will take it. And other people who are halfway across the globe can't take it. So it makes sense why there's these huge row downs. But if that's okay with you and you're willing to wait 10 slots and willing to travel, then there is a way to get there.
Yeah, definitely. And just don't take the off season, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. Maintain some fitness, work on your nutrition, maybe that, work on your recovery, your nutrition, make sure you're fresh starting your race preparation phase whenever that's going to start, and give yourself plenty of time to progress towards your goal.
Yeah. Hey, there were some big things happening over the last weekend. In addition to you doing a race, we'll get to that. Former friend and guest of the podcast a number of times, Sister Madonna Booter, who's actually from Spokane, where I am right now, just finished the age group nationals in Wisconsin. Is that right?
In Milwaukee, yeah.
Milwaukee, Wisconsin, at the age of 93. She started doing triathlons at the age of 52 and has done 40-plus Ironmans since, and just did the age group nationals. Was that the sprint or Olympic distance? Do you recall? I
don't recall, but I saw her time. A video of her finishing. It was like 3 hours, right?
Yeah, just under 3 hours. So I don't know.
I don't know. I didn't even think about that being the sprint, but for her, maybe it was.
Maybe it was. Yeah, a few years ago, she was attempting again to open a new age group for, I don't know if she was doing a 70.3, which would have qualified her for Kona, but yeah, her Ironman days are over. Her 70.3 days might be over. I mean, come on, 93. She's doing triathlon, so it's not like she has to, keep on breaking world records. She's 93 and still finishing triathlons, and that's awesome. I did a podcast with her. This sounds kind of funny. Mm-hmm. I put a camera in the car. I went to go pick her up to take her to a local triathlon event where she was speaking at my triathlon club, and I asked her, could I just press record, and I talked to her from the time I picked her up at her house to take her to our club event, and made a podcast out of it. And then also recorded a little chat that I had with her in front of our group. I've known her for a long time. Actually, when I used to work in TV at the ABC affiliate here in Spokane, she came on the show and was talking about, I think it was Iron Nun was her book.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I met her. And I actually mispronounced her last name, which I guess isn't that hard. The first time I saw her name, I said Madonna Butter, because Budder. I didn't know it was Booter. And then since
Butter, I could see that.
Since then, I interviewed her on set, developed a friendship with her, and because she's in triathlon, because she's in Spokane, I was able to bump into her in our circles. and developed a friendship with her. Obviously, I'd go to her house, pick her up, and drive her to our club event. And yeah, she's a really great person, a great ambassador of the sport, and lets you know, here's the cliche, that anything's possible. And then she's a living, walking example of that. And then at Ironman 70.3 Hanu, I was covering the race. I think I was covering the race because I ran with her the last mile or mile and a half, probably the last mile of the race, and recorded chatting with her. And we're not going that fast, but in the last part of that race, I think is on a golf course. It was all grass the last part of the run, and it was slightly downhill. So I caught her at this aid station and then jogged with her down. And she'll talk to anybody, but because she knew me, it was a little easier to like, "Hi sister, how's it going?" And tell me about your race. That was a 70.3. Must have been in 2011, 12, or 13. I can't remember which. And yeah, little walk down memory lane. She just finished her a race at 93 this last weekend. And then you mentioned, just to throw it out there, that the water temperature at Ironman Alaska was 56 degrees.
Yeah, so I coached an athlete who raced, and there is a limit. There is a low limit that Ironman says is too dangerous. I mean, 56 degrees. So they did one loop of the 2.4 miles. So they exited at 1.2 mile. And I was really confused because some people had some extremely long transitions. So I couldn't find where Ironman was posting this or live casting this. So I didn't really know what was going on, but I coached an athlete who did it, and I had a friend who did it, who each took like 30 minutes in transition. Wow. So I just assumed they were taking that time to warm up. And then I actually thought maybe the weather's bad, so maybe they're holding everyone back, and they're going to do like a time trial start to restart the bike due to the weather conditions. But unfortunately, the athlete I coached, she hurt her toe, and so she had to take the time for them to bandage up her toe because it was bleeding pretty bad when she came out of the water. Wow. And she finished in about 15 hours. She had a great race. And then my other friend, who I know from Colorado, she had a flat tire. So when she entered transition, her tire was flat. So she had to stand in line with the bike mechanic so they could change her flat tire for her. So both long transitions. And then as I was watching, I figured that extra 30 to 40 minute in transition would have been another loop of the course. Yeah. And so it was really confusing to me what was going on. And I was excited to talk to them, or at least get their email feedback when they finished. And both of them did finish. So that was exciting. And I just know the conditions were tough. The air temperature was really cool. And people said they had like all weather patterns throughout the bike course. And I was just really happy I wasn't there because I don't really like that cold. I don't like the cold anymore.
They had about 1,000 athletes participate. They had 46 states, 30 countries involved, 45 slots, I think, for the World Championship. Uh-huh. And they had more volunteers than they had athletes. That's awesome. Wow. Well, usually don't have only 1,000 athletes, but to have 1,400 volunteers involved in that race.
In Juneau, yeah. Yeah,
in Juneau. It's great that I think it's the first time they've had a full up there. Inaugural, yeah.
The inaugural one, yeah.
Man. I'm looking at some photos. There's endurance.biz has some photographs from the race, and it's going to be spectacular, just like a Lake Tahoe would be, but even more so. Yeah. Or an Ironman Canada would be in Whistler. That's it's really neat. Yeah. 45 qualifying spots.
Yeah, I'd like to go to Alaska, not to do an Ironman.
Not to do an Ironman?
No, I would just like to go to Alaska.
Oh, yeah, so when I mentioned about having the split field, a 2-day event is in 2023 for Kona. Obviously not this year, and you would know that because you're doing. Well,
they are doing that this year.
Oh, they are splitting it?
Yeah, because there's 3 years worth of athletes who qualified.
Oh, okay. So there's a number of reasons why they felt this is because of the backlog of COVID athletes, right?
Yeah, so they're doing that this year. The women race on Thursday, as well as for some reason the males 25 to 29. I also believe race on Thursday. Maybe they changed that. Maybe that was a different race, but the men race on the traditional Saturday, and I understand why they're doing that this year. I thought they would wait to see how that went before they actually made that a commitment for future years. But obviously they didn't wait. They think it's a good thing and they're going forward with it.
Anything to motivate people to sign up for races too. With so many more races, people have to make a decision. On one weekend, could have 3 or 4 races throughout your country or throughout the United States, for example, and you have to make decisions. And more races, more slots. They need to fill up those races, so they got to inspire people. Hey, or motivate them. Hey, come over here. We got more slots over here.
Right.
We want to. That's what they do. I mean, you got a new race, you throw lots of slots at it to get the people exposed to that venue and get people to come there.
Races used to fill up.
Yeah.
And there's still slots available, I believe, for Ironman Wisconsin, Ironman Florida, Ironman Arizona. All these, September, October, November events are not full yet. So, we still got a chance.
And that was one more thing along the question of the gentleman who asked about qualifying. Who was that? That was Frank. Is qualify for a race that a few people are in because they're in Kona. The best of the best are already there, so maybe do after the cutoff of that year's race, sign up.
Yeah, because I think the St. George World Championship is in October this year. The Ironman World Championship is always in October. So if someone's schedule allows them to do a 70.3 in October, that's probably your best chance to qualify because everyone else, all the fast people, are already at a World Championship event.
Speaking of fast people, perfect segue. Wendy, you had a race this last weekend. I didn't know you were doing a try. Maybe you didn't know. Either way, you had a good event. Tell me about your triathlon last weekend.
Yeah, so it's called the East Cop Triathlon. It starts at Mountain View Aquatic Center. It's 3/4 of a mile away from my house. I did it last year, and it's just a really good, fun local event. It's a beginner event. They have a sprint. They have an Olympic, a sprint, a super sprint, and a kids race. And you can do teams. So you could be the swimmer, have someone else do the bike and someone else do the run. And that's actually what got me in triathlon 30 years ago is I did it. I was the swimmer on a team and I was hooked just by watching. And so I was encouraging my swim team kids to do it. Unfortunately, they all had busy weekends and they couldn't participate. But it was just really nice to kind of wake up and ride my bike over there and set up transition and just kind of hang out and kind of remember what it was like to be a beginner. And last year, I ended up 1 or 2 guys beat me, and I was first female overall. This year, I don't know if those guys were even there, but I won the overall, and I just had a really good race. I dropped time in the swim, the bike, and the run, so that's always encouraging. For me, is always about trying to beat my time from previous years in similar weather conditions, same course. And so I felt really good about it because I wasn't expecting to be that much faster. I thought I was expecting, I just hope I go at least the same time, maybe a little bit faster. And so that was really encouraging for me. It was fun. It was just a fun event. I like supporting the locals.
And it was a pool swim, right?
It was a pool swim. It's called a snake swim. Mm-hmm. And so last year they had Mountain View Aquatic Center, they had it set up in a 50-meter style. So you would do 50 meters and then you'd move over a lane, do 50 meters, move over. And so you had to do that 10 times to make the 1,000 meters. This year, for whatever reason, they didn't have that, what's called long course set up, but they do have two 10-lane, 25-yard pool. And so we started. So instead of going one way and switching lanes, we had to go down and back and then switch lanes, down and back. And they did a really good job. They separated us by 20 seconds. So there was plenty of room to pass someone. I never felt like I was going to have a head-on collision with anyone. You did have to get out of one pool, jog 25 yards, get in the other pool, and then you had to get out and jog 25 yards. So I felt with that extra, 50 yards of running, I felt like that added up to a little bit more like 1,000 meters rather than 1,000 yards because that counted as your pool time. Oh. And I did lose my timing chip in the gutter. I did a flip turn. My timing chip came off. I always pin it. I forgot to pin it. So it was just, you don't want to take these things for granted, but this was my first triathlon this year. So I'm kind of It's a learning experience. It's always a learning experience. So I'm kind of glad that happened here. So it's not going to happen again. I'm going to make sure I pin my bib or pin my timing chip around my ankle because it went in the gutter. And so I had to reach for it because it was going away and I had to reach for it, grab it, try to put it on my ankle. I couldn't put it on around my ankle. So I stuffed it down my swimsuit. It stayed there. And then as soon as I got out of the swim, I had to fumble with trying to put it on so I could run over the timing mat and it could get an accurate swim time. So that's just part of the fun for me.
And the super sprint, is that like you do back-to-back triathlons, short ones?
No, the super sprint was just a shorter distance than the sprint. So I believe, my race was a 4-loop bike course and a 3-loop run course. The sprint was probably 2 loops of the bike and 2 loops of the run, a little bit shorter. And then the super sprint was 1 loop of the bike. So the super sprint was about 6 miles and then 1 loop of the run. So and then there's probably 500-yard swim.
Okay. So something for all ages, all
something
levels.
For all ages, yeah. And I just liked the camaraderie and the teams and there were a lot of kids. The kids were fun to watch.
That's the best.
Yeah.
That is the best. One thing for me, and I was gone last weekend for 4 days, did no exercise, and I got an Olympic in 2 days. And you and I talked about this probably off air, that I'm just going to focus on having a good bike ride. But because I haven't ridden much in the last week and a half, I think I'm going to make it a training day and be real casual. Can you hear that?
Why? Yeah, why?
Because I haven't done any really training. I mean, yes, baby. Yeah, I'm getting called out to finish this podcast. Just because I don't think you should use I haven't trained a lot. I think you should just go do the best you can do. That's my advice. Well, the plan was to go hard on the bike and have a relaxed swim and a relaxed run, real casual, super casual on both of those, just to have a hard bike, to make a hard bike ride. So I'll probably still do that. There's a kind of a hilly bike, but I'll probably still do that and go hard on the bike. But it's everything else is going to be like, hey, I'm not going to be out here for 3 hours. I think that's okay. Let me jumpstart my next 100 days leading up to Ironman in Arizona with a 3-hour exercise training day, and that's the idea.
I think that sounds good. You know, whatever you decide to do, have your intention, know what your intention is, go do whatever you're going to do, and then at the end of the race, you do a review and see if what you did was what you intended.
There you go.
That's the best way to learn.
And then I'll talk about that next podcast.
I love it. I'm excited.
I got family calling, so let me wrap this up. This has been episode 368. Thank you, Wendy, for another great podcast, answering the questions, and for all of you who submitted those questions. Have a great week, everybody, of racing, training, and recovery. We'll see you next time. Adios.
Adios.